Alright, hi. Let's zoom out to page level. Alright, your New York Air Brake Nor Brake Company instruction pamphlet number 74, supplement number 1, March 1978, 26NL brake equipment with 26C brake valve, 6NR distributing valve for switch and road locomotives. Alright, that goes over the offices. And we'll zoom in. 2NL brake equipment, 26C brake valve, and 6NR distributor valve for the switch road locomotives. Instruction pamphlet number 74, supplemental number March 1978, New York Air Brake Company Unit, Nor Brake, Watertown, New York. Alright, contents. The forward of the equipment, the flexibility of the equipment, the 26C brake valve with the 6A26 independent brake valve, automatic brake operation, independent brake operation, 6NR distributing valve, 3/8 inch number 24A double check valve, the HSB relay air valve, combined strainer cutout cock, 3/8 inch check E1, 3/8 inch choke fitting, equalizing reservoir, KM2 vent valve portion, 1 inch check valve with a 5/16 inch bypass choke valve, combined strainer and check valve, emergency brake valve, multiple unit 2A valve, multiple unit 2A1 valve, DT double check valve, F1 selector valve, overspeed control, safety control functions with the P2A brake application valve, brake N2 2 brake protection figure A1, charging cutoff pilot valve, dynamic brake interlocking feature, operating instructions. Alright, illustration. Plate 1 is the piping diagrammatic of the standard 26NL type of the brake control group with the basic switching locomotive with the 26C brake valve and the 6NR distributing valve with the non-multiple unit service. Plate 2, pipe diagrammatic standard 26NL type of the brake equipment with the standard road locomotive with the 26 brake valve and the 6NR distributing valve arranged in the multiple unit 2 position safety overspeed control braking and 2 protection emergency standing multiple unit with a 26L and 26NL and 24RL equipment. 3. Piping diagrammatic universal 26NL type of the brake equipment with the standard road locomotive with the 26C brake valve with the 6NR distributing valve arranged in multiple unit 3 position safety overspeed control. Plate number 3 continued. Breaking the 2 protection emergency with the standing of the multiple unit with the 6 G97L, B26L, and 26NL and 24RL equipment. Illustration. Plate number 4. Piping diagram of the standard 26NL type of the brake control group with the basic switching locomotive with the 26C brake valve and the 6NR distributing valve for a non-multiple unit service. 4. This instruction pamphlet number 74, supplemental number 1, has been prepared with the intention to simplify the understanding of the operation function of the components. Described symbolic diagrams are used together with a written description diagrammatic for each of the component making up equipment. Described the symbolic diagrams have been prepared generally according with the standard industry-wide accepted American standard ASA Y3210. The combination of the rules, instruction standard, and symbols pertaining to the graphic symbols of fluid power diagrams appear in the New York Air Brake Company's general letter number 398. Alright, the equipment. The number 26N1 brake equipment with the 26C brake valve with the 6NR distributing valve is a standard arrangement with the switch locomotive that can be arranged with the safety control, overspeed control, dynamic interlocking, multiple unit control for road locomotives. The 26NL brake equipment is New York Air Brake Company. The arrangement of the modern standard with the air brake devices resulting in the simply with the flexible brake equipment for switching and road locomotive service as designated with the 26NL implied with the basic equipment can utilize the 26C brake valve and the cab control. The 6NR type distributing valve provides the automatic independent brake response. The 26C brake valve is present centered on road locomotive that permits the cab arrangement to be the same for the 26L equipment. The 6NR distributing valve with the virtue with the modern with the construction employing the diagram actuated with the O-ring with the packed with the full valve provided with the generally improved with the response is much less maintenance cost than does the predecessor with the 6K distributing valve. The H5B relay valve relay air valve is used to permit the independent release for the automatic brake application for the locomotive. The feeder individual mounted with the valve portion compromising equipment reduces the original installation cost and the cost of the removal area of application periodic maintenance intervals. The 6NL equipment has the capacity for the adequate control for the length of the training protection against the stuck brakes when the locomotive is shipped and dead end into the train. Due to the diaphragm actuation of the 6NR distributing valve, which eliminates the leakage of loss of pressure differential over the valve, which causes the stuck brakes. Alright, flexibility of the equipment. The basic equipment with the switch locomotive is shown with the plate 1, but the equipment is flexible and permits the additional optional function and to incorporate for the use of the road locomotives as follows. Multiple unit with control with the 26L, 26NL, 26R, and 24RL equipment by adding the multiple unit 2A1 valve with the 2 position to the basic equipment side, seeing pipe diagrammatic plate number 2. Multiple unit control with the 6, 27L, B, 26L, and 26NL, 24RL equipment being added with the multiple unit 2A valve as the F1 selector valve with the basic equipment. See the piping diagram plate 3. Penalty type of the brake application being added to the P2A brake application valve to the basic equipment, and for braking and the true protection by adding the A1 charging cutoff valve to the basic equipment. Alright, 26C brake equipment with the SA26 independent brake valve shows the 26C brake valve in figure number 1. The 26C brake valve with the SA26 independent brake valve incorporates all the advantages of the common with the 26L brake equipment for the road locomotive, such as self-lapping automatic independent brake valve portions, pressure maintaining provision for the additional type of the penalty brake application with the P2A brake valve, brake application valve, provision for the additional duplicate cab controls, eliminating the hard work of the brake of the hard working brake valve. The 26 brake valve is illustrated in its operation described in the following pages. Alright, 26C brake valve shows the relays and the relay valve, the BCP cutoff valve, the vent valve, the ER cut valve, the regulating valve, the automatic emergency suppression valve, the independent regulating and actuating valve. This shows you your the 26C brake valve stand, which is in the cab to control the brakes. And it shows the regulating valve, brake pipe cutoff valve, the vent valve, the emergency valve portion, suppression valve, equalizing groove cutoff valve, cutoff piston valve, front position, relay valve, and it shows the different positions of the brake relay, minimum reduction, surface on, full surface suppression, handle off, and emergency. Alright, the 26 brake valve and figure 2 self-lapping type, which has been incorporated, made modern with the design improvements. These include the replacement of the rotary valve that can be operated with the rotary impact, the spool valve with the cam operated poppet type valve 2 that provide with the control of the locomotive, the train brakes. Also incorporated with the brake valve design with the cam operated self-lapping regulating valve portion, which functions develop and dissipate with the equalizing reservoir pressure in the proportion to the degree of the brake valve handle movement in the handle quadrant. In turn, the brake pipe pressure is developed and exhausted by the self-lapping type of the relay valve that is piloted to equalizing reservoir pressure to maintain the brake pipe with the same pressure condition with the existing equalizing reservoir. The 26 brake valve equipment is mounted on the pipe rabbet to which all the pipe connections are made with the pipe connections are identified numerically as follows. 1. Brake pipe. 3. Switch pipe. 5. Equalizing reserve control pipe. 8. Lockover pipe. 12. Emergency switch pipe. 13. Actuating pipe. 15. Equalizing reserve charging pipe. 20. Independent application release pipe. 21. Safety control pipe. 26. Suppression pipe. 30. Main reserve pipe. 53. Brake pipe cutoff pipe. Brake valve consists of the two main portions of the automatic portion of the regulating brake pipe pressure controlling both the locomotive, the train brake, the independent portion of the latter of the self-lapping independent brake valve for the applying of the releasing of the locomotive brakes independently with the train brakes for the releasing automatic brake application on the locomotive independently with the train brakes. The automatic brake valve portion is mounted on the top of the pipe bracket with the screw with the 4 stars. The independent portion is attached to the front of the pipe brake and is secured with the 3 cap screws. The 26C brake valve is arranged with the panel mounting with the entire valvular section mounted behind the paneling, resulting in only the handle operation portion, cut-off pilot valve section appearing on the front face of the panel. The automatic brake valve handle is at the 6 handle positions as shown in Figure 3, arranged left to the right as follows. Alright, Figure 3 shows the handle position 26C brake valve, the regulating valve, release automatic of the automatic handle. If release, minimum reduction, full suppression, handle off, and emergency. Release running position. The protection of the charging of the equipment, the releasing the locomotive with the train brakes located with the brake valve handle with the extreme left of the quadrant minimum reduction position. The position located with the brake valve handle against the first raised portion of the quadrant right release and the position with the brake valve handle move with this position of minimum brake reduction is obtained. Surface position. The surface position consists of the second of the brake valve handle with the move to the right of the release position, move with the brake valve handle to the left to the right through the selector of the degree of the brake application increase until which the handle with the extreme right with the selector handle with the full surface portion and full surface brake application is obtained with the 80 psi gauge. Equalizing reservoir pressure from the maximum brake pipe pressure is obtained with the full surface position higher than 80 psi gauge. Equalizing reservoir pressure is used. Maximum cylinder pressure were obtained by the moving of the brake valve handle to the handle off position. Alright, your suppression position. The position used to reset the penalty application to nullify the safety control brake application such that the penalty application can be avoided. The brake valve handle is removed with the suppression position before the expiration of the predetermined delay period, which indicate with the audible warning whistle. However, the 26C brake valve is designed whenever the brake valve handle is placed in the suppression position. A full surface brake application is obtained. Not possible to avoid getting full surface brake application by cycling the brake valve handle. This is returning the brake valve handle to the release position for a few seconds, then returning it to the suppression position since the brake valve was originally conditioned for the full surface application. Handle up position. The position is located with the first quadrant notch with the right of the suppression position with the handle with the removable. In this position, the reason position is that which the handle should be placed on trailing unit with the multiple unit locomotive and the locomotives be towed in dead end train. Your emergency position. The position located with the extreme right of the brake valve of the quadrant. The position must be with the banking the brake valve emergency application, but the resulting in the after the emergency application, the brake in2 feature is available. The cutoff valve provides the function with the familiar double heading cock with the cut in and with the cutting out brake. The desired two position type is deployed with the locomotives intended for freight service only in the position in and out. The cutoff pilot valve is positively held each of its handle position by the spring loading necessary first with the press of the handle before it can be moved then to the on one position another. The brake valve cutoff valve with the cutoff valve portion valve position and pressure maintaining the cutoff valve if there is possible to make brake pipe tight leakage checks which are covered later in the operating instruction. For all normal operation of the locomotive with the controlling unit with the cutoff pilot valve must be handled with the place in the in position out position to be used for the hauling of the locomotive in dead as or trailing unit with the multiple unit locomotive. It is in the cutoff valve portion of the incorporated two check valve with provide either brake pipe pressure or the main reserve pressure to the brake pipe cutoff valve depending on the existing higher pressure. The 2.6 automatic brake valve portion includes the following details. The self-lapping type of the regulating valve is operated with the serve of the cam to fit is into the rotated with the handle shaft that regulates the pressure, equalizing reserve charging number 15. The pressure is either pipe through the P2 or P2A brake application valve. This is one of the employed directly with the number S pipe beneath the brake valve. There is the direct through of passage 5 brake valve to the other phase for the diaphragm. The relay valve portion movement of the brake valve handle with the release position is into the surface electric curve of the regulating portion to reduce equalizing reservoir pressure to the portion to the amount of the handling unit until the civil surface portion is equalizing reservoir pressure reduces approximately 20 to 36 psi gauge, 23 to 26 psi gauge. Adjusting the equalizing reservoir pressure in the release position can be made turning on the adjusting handle at the end of the regulating valve portion. The relay valve portion consists of the diaphragm operative relay establishes the pressure for the brake with the equal to the equalizing reservoir at the time. They are capable of either supplying the venting of the brake of the pipe with the pressure and acting supply valve with the charge the brake pipe pressure on the locomotive of the train with the brake valve handle with the release position during the automatic brake application. Reduction of the equalizing reservoir pressure in the regulating valve causing the relay portion to reduce the brake pipe pressure. Corresponding with the relay valve portion will maintain the brake pipe pressure against the brake pipe leakage. 3. The brake pipe cutoff valve will interrupt the flow of the air for the relay valve, the supply valve to the brake pipe in the event of an emergency brake application. The position of the cutoff valve with the valve is in the out position. Operation auxiliary device connected to the brake valve, which requires interpretation airflow of the brake pipe for purpose in the brake and to protection. The vent valve with its cam operated with the brake valve handle with the emergency position to reduce the rapid drop in the brake pipe pressure. The emergency valve of the cab operated with the brake valve of the hand shaft. The emergency position provides the flow of the main reserve at the number 12 pipe of the operation with a or knockout switch for the auxiliary functions that are required to operate the emergency position to the brake valve handle. The emergency valve is operated with the equalizing reservoir pressure quickly of the brake valve of the emergency position to ensure the rapid prompt venting of the brake pipe. 6. The suppression valve is the cam operated with the brake valve with the handle to the handled shaft to provide with the main reserve air supply with the port number 26 of the suppression handle off the emergency position with the brake valve to suppress the safety control by applications. The valve is also function in the handle with the position close to number 8 with the resetting of the brake application valve with the prior to releasing the auxiliary brake applications. The position reservoir cuts off the valve with the freight surface with the cut off of the violet valve with the handle with the freight impact into the front and impact position with the equalizing reservoir cut off valve is held down only the release position only in the position that the brake can be released. Alright, automatic brake operation, release position. The position with the 26C brake valve with the charging of the brake pipe with the brake system with the releasing automatic pneumatic brake application may reserve air into the port number 3 with the pipe with the bracket flow with the supply valve with the relay valve portion to the spool valve with the suppression valve with the intent to the passage number 3 and through the spool valve with the cutoff pilot valve with the passage 7 and the air and to the understanding the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve with the position piston the air pressure cutting acting on the face of the piston will move upward and forcing the charging the check valve to off the seat into the open position. Main reserve airflow flows from the port number 30 through the charging valve, the regulating valve portion past the unseated check valve and the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve to passage 15, as well as to the face of the regulating valve diaphragm. Regulating handle A can be adjusted with the regulating valve with the equalizing reservoir pressure to develop a regulating valve portion. The air pressure of the part number 15 and port number 15 and port number 5 are likewise developed in the equalizing reservoir. Port number 5 is in the pipe of the bracket and is connected with the spool valve with the emergency valve to the chamber of the outer face of the relay diaphragm. The pump diaphragm equalizing reservoir pressure of the outer face of the relay valve of the diaphragm will cover the diaphragm assembly in the attached stem to move inward and first seat. Exhaust valve of the unseat with the supply valve, the permits of the main reserve airflow with the pass the unseat, the supply valve to brake pipe, and port number 1 with the stabilizing choke with the camber in the interface with the relay with the valve diaphragm, brake pipe, and port number 1 airflow for the brake pipe, the cutoff valve, and to the port number 1, the pipe bracket which the brake pipe is connected. Wherever the brake pipe pressure builds up at the interface with the relay valve, the diaphragm approaches the equalizing reservoir pressure acting on the opposite side of the diaphragm. The diaphragm is sealed with the assembly and the steam are positioned to permit the supply valve to become seated and terminate the further flow of the air from the main reserve system to the brake pipe. The brake pipe is now fully charged, however, there should be the brake pipe pressure decreases due to the brake pipe leakage. However, the higher the equalizing reservoir pressure acting on the outer face of the relay with the valve of the diaphragm, move the diaphragm assembly stem inward, again unseating the supply valve, restore the brake pipe pressure to the equalizing reservoir pressure after the supply valve will again be seated. The position of the relay valve portion. Service position. The position consisting of the sector handle movement to the right of the release position. The handle is moved through the sectors towards the service position. Brake pipe pressure reduction and increase gradually for the full service position. For the full service brake pipe reduction has been obtained with the minimum reduction notch located just a few degrees to the right of the release portion position. By a raised portion of the surface zone of the movement of the brake valve handle position to provide with the minimum reduction in pressure from the equalizing reservoir solid, resulting in similar reduction in brake pipe pressure. When automatic brake valve handle is moved with the intermediate of the service position, the suppression cam on the handle of the shaft of the suppression valve to connect the port number 3 to the atmosphere of the surface, and the cam on the handle of the shaft valve, the exhaust valve, the regulating valve to unseat to permit the equalizing reservoir charging air to reduce normally with the port number 3 exhausted with the cutoff pilot valve at the front position and the equal freight position, and the equalizing passenger equalizing reservoir cutoff valve is closed with the as soon as the pressure differential is achieved, the cross of the cutoff valve check valve by reducing the equalizing reservoir charge air on the top of the check valve. The check valve is unseated and the equalizing reservoir air can then flow past the check valve and the regulating valve. The equal exhaust valve in the atmosphere reduce the equalizing reservoir pressure and amount with the corresponding brake valve handle position reduction. Equalizing reservoir pressure creates the pressure differential across the relay valve of the diaphragm, causing the diaphragm assembly to stem to the move it outward unseating the relay valve with the exhaust valve, allowing the brake pipe air to vent with the atmosphere with the brake valve. The brake pipe air will continue to vent atmosphere until the pressure has been reduced sufficiently to cover the pressure equalizing across the relay valve diaphragm, which occur with the diaphragm assembly stem. The aid with the relay valve spring position assembly to allow the exhaust valve to become seated. Thus, brake valve can be said to be in the lap position or lapped off. When the automatic brake valve handle is moved with the full surface position, the brake valve operates with the described above, except for the cause of the equalizing reservoir and brake pipe pressure to drop significantly to produce the full surface brake application. Alright, your suppression position. The position is used with the reset of the penalty for the application to nullify the safety control of the brake application. Such penalty the application can be avoided with the brake valve handle to move with the suppression position before the expiration of the predetermined delay period, which is indicated with the audible warning whistle. However, the 26C brake valve is designed whenever the brake valve handle is placed in suppression position. A full surface brake application is obtained and not possible to avoid getting on the full surface brake application by cycling brake valve handle. This is by returning the brake valve handle to the release position for a few seconds, then returning to the suppression position since the brake valve was originally conditioned for a full surface brake application. In suppression position, the suppression cam on the brake valve, the handle of the shaft of the suppression valve to connect with the port number 3 to the atmosphere to port number 8 from P2A brake application valve connecting the main reserve air pressure air to the part number 26 for the PA2A valve to suppress the reset penalty brake application. Your handle off position. The handle can be removed with the brake valve in position with the handle position. You can obtain addition of the brake valve on the trailing unit for the multiple unit locomotive. The locomotive to be held with the dead in the train brake pipe pressure with the brake valve to reduce the zero at various valves with the weather and the brake valve are positioned to move brake inoperative with the normal operation functions of the brake valve while the brake valve handle with the handle off position. The reverse brake valve spool valve are in position to the same suppression position. Normally after moving the brake valve handle to the handle off position, cut off pilot valve handle is moved to the off position where in main reserve air pressure is put to the part number 53 for the purpose of closing the brake pipe cutoff valve against the train line. Brake pipe pressure for the position may be used for making equalizing reservoir and reduction successful service. Emergency position. The position of the brake valve handle is used to prevent the brake pipe pressure to zero at the fastest possible rate. To reduce the emergency brake pipe reduction, to set the emergency brake application to brake in two protections is available. The flow of the flow of the air to the brake pipe is cut off at the position of the emergency valve. The position of the zero equalizing air from the passage from the pipe number 5 to supplement of the venting regulating valve exhaust valve to allow the main reserve air to flow from the part number 30 with the port number 12 and number 12 of the emergency switch pipe, also which equalizing reservoir at the outer face of the relay portion. Diaphragm reduce the zero. Diaphragm assembly and stem remove the unseat the relay valve, the exhaust valve, allowing the brake pipe air to vent the zero. Also, cam of the brake valve handle shaft functions to unseat the large capacity vent valve to supplement the brake pipe venting, resulting in rapid emergency rate of the brake pipe pressure reduction of the brake valve. The suppression valve may remain in the same position as in suppression and handle off positions. Independent brake valve operation. The SA26 independent brake valve mounted with the front of the pipe bracket, the 26C brake valve, then provides independent control of the Loco motive broken brake cylinder pressure within respectively with the train brake for the brake valve handle with the two position, namely release position for the extreme left and for the quadrant full application position, the extreme right of the quadrant. For the release for the full application position with the application zone with the sector further handle may move to the right and into the sector greater with the application until the full application of the tame, the extreme right with the end of the handle moves out to the independent brake valve from the release position towards the full application position, actually, which the cam in which turns the positive position the supply of the exhaust of the valve assembly to the first seat exhaust valve, then unseat the supply valve. Main reserve air will flow for the pass of the unseated supply valve with the port number 30 to port number 20. Port number 20 with the brake valve is connected to the port number 2A on the 6NR distributing valve with the VVA the number 24A double check valve. Therefore, the pressure developed in port number 20 will actuate the relay valve to develop in pressure locomotive brake cylinder air pressure develops in part number 20 develops in the interface of the diaphragm independent brake valve the builder up the pressure and diaphragm opposed with the spring pressure for the opposite side of the air pressure with the spring pressure of the balance with the valve. The assembly will move to the lap position which some supply valve becomes seated intermittently for the flow of the main reserve air to the part number 20 with the result leakage of the number 20 line. The air and pressure should drop with the diaphragm assembly will move to again unseat the supply valve of the pyramid the main reserve air to the restore the pressure number part number 20. Port number 20 with the valve of the spring seating the self-lapping pressure maintaining the feature of the independent brake valve. Our depression independent brake valve handle whenever the handle's release position will call it the release of an automatic brake application existing on the locomotive. Main reserve air will flow from the port number 13 which will turn and connect with the port number 10 with the HSB with the relay air valve which when air pressure with the port number 10 with exceed the valve with the return spring the port number 11 connected with the port number 9 atmosphere and application for chamber port number 2A with exhaust with the port number 2 and HFB relay air valve port number 9 air in the brake cylinder will return the vented with the 6NR distributing valve with the BC with exhaust with described under the operation of the 6NR distributing valve. Pressure in the independent brake valve handle is somewhere in the application zone with the release automatic application only at the value corresponding with the position of the handle in the application zone. Alright, your 6N distributing valve. The 6N distributing valve consists of the operating portion of the mounted on the same the R type, the reserve, and used for the many years of the 6KR type distributing valve. The reserve contained with the application chamber of the pressure chamber volumes. The operation portion consists of the equalizing valve portion and the application for the valve portion. The equalizing portion of the diaphragm operated with the piston slide valve combination provides for increased sensitivity to the brake applications, release ensured reliability to operation of long multiple unit consists. The application portion includes the function of the J1 relay valve with which to reassemble the construction operating reserves that is included with the combination reserve pipe bracket. The 6NR distributing valve also includes the safety valve to limit the brake cylinder pressure for the required standard brake regardless of the brake pipe pressure employed. The operating with the 6NR distributing valve is described and followed with the refer to figure 4 of the diagrammatic drawing. During the charging and release of the function, the brake pipe airflow flares to the outer face for the equalizing port piston diaphragm, forcing the piston and slide valve to release position air to the brake in the brake pipe, that then flows from the charging choke to the equalizing slide valve to the pressure chamber, the charging into the brake pipe pressure. In this position, the equalizing slide valve connects to the application chamber throughout the port number 4 exhaust the application cylinder of the outer face of the application piston. Exhaust V of the passage 2A through the number 24A double check valve passes 2B and 2 and 4 in the distributing valve exhaust the release spring holds on the application piston and release position against the application cylinder cover the inner and end of the application piston, in which the machine with the exhaust valve is seated and move away from the rubber supply exhaust valve to vent the brake cylinder passes the main reserve air pressure was constantly present to the chamber of the upper side of the rubber supply and exhaust valve. During surface brake application, the brake pipe pressure reduced with the difference pressure between the brake pipe and the pressure of the chamber. The high pressure of the equalizing of the chamber, the equalizing slide valve of the chamber consists of the equalizing piston slide valve of the upward with the surface position, while the slide valve portion of the connections are made with the shown the auxiliary slide valve position. The diagram upon the first move towards the surface position with the graduating valve serve the communication between the brake pipe and the pressure chamber. Communications between the pressure chamber and the passage number 2 is then made, allowing the pressure chamber air to flow through this application chamber to the application cylinder to the outer face of the application piston V with the passage number 2 and 2B and number 24A double check valve, then 2A. The flow of the pressure charge chamber air with the continued until the pressure has been reduced slightly below the brake pipe pressure on the opposite side of the equalizing piston, at which time the piston and the graduating valve are mounted, moved in service lap position auxiliary view, terminating a further flow of the pressure chamber to the air pressure number 2. The maximum pressure in the number 2 is limited to the safety valve, which connects with the passage number 2, and the safety valve controls choke the pressure, then developed in passage number 2 of the application cylinder of the outer face of the application piston, cause the piston to move upward against the release spring with the first seal with the exhaust seat against the underside of the supply and exhaust valve to then release the valve from the supply seat to all the main reserve of the flow of the brake pipe cylinder cavity B and the passage B and C, thus beginning of the surface position of the application portion is shown in the auxiliary view of the brake cylinder air pressure for the shows also builds up in the chamber C. Interface for the application piston of the diaphragm for the EVA, the stabilizing choke of the air brake cylinder pressure for the chamber C. Approaches the application of the cylinder pressure for the opposite side of the diaphragm and piston. The application of the piston move downward to allow the supply of the exhaust valve to be seated upon the supply valve of the seat to terminate further the main reserve air brake cylinder. Therefore, the surface lap of the position is shown in the auxiliary view with the supply exhaust valve to contact with the both seats. When brake cylinder leakage reduces the brake cylinder pressure of the higher application cylinder pressure, move application piston under this upward to the unseat the valve of the supply seat, allowing the main reserve air to flow with the brake cylinder to restore the pressure, equalizing application cylinder pressure. There is a brake cylinder pressure maintaining feature that has been present in all previous types of distributing valves. Brake release are accomplished with the increase of the brake pipe pressure with the move of the equalizing piston slide valve, the release of the position connection, the number 2 passage application chamber, the exhaust port, number 4 projection of the passenger, number 2, then application cylinder permits the higher brake cylinder pressure in the chamber C with the move of the piston out of the contact with the exhaust valve C, allowing the brake cylinder air to flow from the chamber B with the path of the exhaust valve to the atmosphere through the brake cylinder exhaust passage. When the emergency application curve of the brake pipe pressure with rapidly vented to 0 during the emergency application, the 6NR distributing valve operates the same manner as the curve during surface application when the addition of the application chamber the pressure maintaining the function. Whether the 2.6 brake valve handle the emergency position main preserved with the connected with port number 12 V with the brake valve the emergency spool valve the performing port number 12 main reserve air flows through the check valve choke fitting to passage number 2 bass equalizing piston to the outer face of the application piston V with the 2B and 24A double check valve and passage 2A. Alright, your main reserve pressure will increase with the valve with the safety check valve setting with the maintain with the safety valve control choke and blow down with the safety valve. Should the brake valve handle be moved to the emergency position control passage, the number 2 pen prevented the escaping out of the number 12 pipe at the check valve, number 12 pipe choke of assured with the positive brake relief of the emergency brake application is bailed off, and during the independent brake application, the air pressure for the passage number 20 with the 26 brake valve that flows directly in the outer face of the application piston be the number 24A double check valve passage number 2A. Alright, this is your number 24 double check valve at the port number 20 to 26B brake valve. If you have two different lines, choose 2A and 2B. The round for the 2A goes to the BC, in which it goes to the application valve, lapse and release. The other 2B goes to emergency valve, safety valve, service lap and release. 2-4 and BL and main reserve brake pipe pressure, main brake control. Alright, your 6N distributing valve, the pressure chamber, application chamber, 6N distributing valve, equalizing piston, charging choke, safety valve, controlling choke, application piston, supply, exhaust valve, number 24, a double check valve to port 20 of the 26 brake valve. Shows the surface lap position in the diaphragm, equalizing in surface and lap position, diaphragm, application value. 3/8 inch number 24 double check valve. The 3/8 inch number 24 double check valve shown in figure 5 is used to control the device from two different sources without any interaction between the source. Floating check valve with the O-ring seals automatically directs the flow of the air from one of the other two controlling devices. The common discharge in both controlling ports at pressure. The high pressure will take over the however the air could cross the control port to the other controlling port. This H5, the B relay air valve. The common discharge from source to supply, common discharge. Slides the check valve. The HSB relay air valve shown in figure 6 is the diaphragm of action with a two-way valve. The purpose of the release of the automatic brake valve application locomotive independent with the train brake. When the control panel with the hand is not pressured by the diaphragm spool of the valve is held in the upper position, return spring. Note that the air ports with the communication with each other over their time. The control port of the hand pressurized sufficiently to provide the spool against the force. The return spring port 11 now is in communication with port 9, which is lost port 12 and is still blanked off. Alright, this shows the hydraulic, the H5B relay air valve. Combined strainer cutout cock. The combined strainer cutout cock shown in figure 7 protects the 6N distributing valve against the entrance of the dirt and any other foreign particles that prevent the operation system. The cutout cock is open with a handle perpendicular to the pipe and closed with the handle is parallel to the pipe. Brake pipe pressure handle. Strainer cutout cock shell. 3/8 inch check valve and 3/8 inch choke fitting. The choke fitting with the check valve and the choke fitting are located between the number 12 pipe of the 26 brake valve, the 26C brake valve, number 11 brake pipe, number 11 pipe of the H5HB relay air valve. Also, the number 12 pipe of the 6N distributing valve, check valve of the choke fitting permits the restricted flow of the air from the 26 brake valve from both relay air valve with the distributing valve. The figure 8 shows the diagrammatic view of the 3/8 inch check valve with the 3/8 inch choke fitting consisting of the body tube of the inlet and outlet portions check of the valve is heat seated with the heat seated held in seat by the spring number 4. The spring 4 is held with the position placed in cap number 5 with threaded into the sealing contact body with the 2. The choke fitting is 6 on the secured with the other outlet port of the check valve. The choke fitting has 1/16 inch diameter drill hole. Alright, your check valve and choke valve fitting, inlet and outlet. The spring loaded 3/8 inch check valve sitting in the spring. Equalizing reservoir. The equalizing reservoir is connected to port 5 and port 15 of the 26 brake valve. Its purpose is to highlight the self-lapping type of the relay air valve. Relay air valve is developed in the exhaust pipe with the pressure at the 26 brake valve. Alright, let's cut the tape there. That's half. That's almost half.